question of the day. So here is a question sent in by a listener. What is the question of the day today?
Okay, it is, why did Cain kill Abel?
Oh, really good question. And I should mention, of course, you can use those phone numbers I just mentioned, 1-800-324-843, or text us on 0491 064 669 if you would like your question to be answered as a part of Question of the Day.
And you can send questions in through any of the social medias that we're on. So any forms, just any way that you can get it to us, we will find it, we will answer it.
Okay, so question of the day today, the answer is found in 1 John chapter 3. Did you expect to find the answer there?
No, I super did not. It was like, Genesis, here we come. But I guess not.
We're going to go all the way pretty much to the other end of the Bible. You're almost in the book of Revelation by the time you get to the book of 1 John. But in 1 John chapter 3 and verse 12, the Bible says, not as Cain, who was of Satan and killed his brother.
Whoa. Okay.
And why did he kill him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. So this is an interesting scenario that takes place here that is not uncommon within humanity, where you find people who do not want to obey God, and they will attack people who do obey God, because people who do obey God make them feel bad.
We just talked about this yesterday, didn't we?
We did just talk about this yesterday, and one of the challenges is that, you know, as a Christian, you never want to make somebody else feel bad, but the simple reality is that just by the life that you live, people are going to feel bad when they see you. And then, of course, if you stand for what is right, the moment that you stand for what is right and say that this is wrong and this is right, the moment you make that kind of a statement, you've made somebody feel bad who's done the wrong thing. And of course, that person then has two options, I guess, as to how they deal with that sense of feeling bad. One of them is that they can either justify themselves, or the alternative is to accept it and to find forgiveness. And of course, that's the permanent solution that you have right there.
That's right.
So, which path did Cain go down? Well, if we go back to the book of Genesis chapter 4, we're going to find that Cain went down the path of justifying himself, you know. And even when God came to him later and said, where is your brother Abel? Cain's like, am I my brother's keeper? How should I know? You know, trying as if you can lie to God. But there's an important lesson that we can learn from this. There are a number of important lessons. What took place was that God had asked them to bring a sacrifice. Cain was a shepherd, and Abel was a vegetable grower. Cain wanted to bring something that was special to him, something that was actually a sacrifice for him. And so he brought vegetables. God, of course, you know, the sacrifice that God asked for is a sacrifice of a lamb. And so rather than going and getting one of Abel's lambs, he brings some vegetables. And all the Bible says is that God didn't honour Cain's sacrifice. You know, God didn't come down and rant and rave and carry on and kick up a big stink. He just didn't honour the sacrifices. Like, yeah, okay, I understand where your heart is. I understand where you're coming from with this, but it's not what I asked for. The lesson here is that God is specific. The problem wasn't with the sacrifice. The problem wasn't with Cain's motivation necessarily for bringing that sacrifice, but the problem was with where Cain's heart was at. You see, when our heart is with God, we obey God simply because of what God says, rather than obeying God on our own terms, so to speak. And so it's like, yeah, I'm going to obey God, but I'm going to obey God my way. God is always specific about what he asks for. God didn't say, hey, go get a sacrifice. Any kind of sacrifice will be fine. God said, bring a lamb. That's clear throughout the Bible. And throughout the Bible, you find that God is always specific. You know, some people bring up the subject of the Sabbath, and we find that, you know, nothing has changed there. You know, God is specific about which day we worship him on. And when we worship him according to what he says, it shows where our heart is. We're not saved because we're good enough to be saved. Our goodness is a result. It's an evidence of our love for God. That's why we obey God. It's because we love him.
Thank you, Lyle. If you have a question, you can ask it here, Faith FM, 1-800, Faith FM is our number.